Nagin, it's funny you work as a comedian because, as we know, the Middle Eastern. Well, we know it's not Iran is not Middle East, but this part of the world. Uh, it's somehow Islam is not very much at ease with.
It's not considered funny.
With yes, yes, and when they laugh about Islam, sometimes people get killed. So
Well, I think that's exactly like one of the things that I'm trying to work against. You know, if you had asked me, are Muslims funny? I would be like, yeah, they're hilarious. And I would cite my mom and her sisters and the ridiculous jokes they crack and my entire extended family. I have hundreds of family members who live in Iran. And so that's my experience with Iranians. They're storytellers. They're fast. They're sharp. They have a way with words. And that's just the kind of thing you don't ever hear about as Muslims, you know? And so that's one of the things that I try and change with my work is like the perception we have of Muslims.
but isn't it that you are a different Muslim from the other Muslims because you live in the United States and you are like modern? You just showed a picture of your mom, which is like everyone's mom.
Yeah. yeah.
And isn't it because of that?
Well, and that's the other thing. You know, we kind of have this image of the Middle East as being one big brown violent blob. And in fact, there's innovation in the Middle East. There's civic culture in the Middle East. You know, there's beautiful films that get made in Iran. Lebanon is wildly different from Saudi Arabia, which is wildly different from Iraq. You know, and so we don't really have a concept for what these different countries are and what they have to offer. And so there's plenty of modern women in the Middle East. I'm an Iranian American, and so I think that gives me the best of the East and the best of the West. You know, I get to kind of combine these two things and hopefully like have like a greater understanding of the world, and be a bridge. You know what I mean?
And have you had any success in being a bridge?
Well, I mean, you know, what success means to me is like, can I reach people, you know? And I've just been trying to reach people, like, you know, with my work. I made a movie called The Muslims Are Coming. It was released in the United States. It came out in theaters. It went on to Netflix and all of the digital platforms. I have a book out called How to Make White People Laugh, and I'm just trying to reach people. And I get emails. I'll get an email from a 16-year-old Filipino-American girl in Iowa who really says, oh my God, your work means so much to me. And then I'll get an email from like a 45-year-old, military white guy in Chicago, and he'll be like, oh, your work means something to me. And so I think that the story of the other is so much more universal than we give it credit for.
And tell us a little bit about the bacon test. It was hilarious.
Yeah, so I basically wanted to test one of Trump's policies, which was to put Muslims on a registry or ban Muslims altogether. So I went onto the streets of New York and I made this video. It was a bacon test, and it was my version of a religious test where I asked people, are you Muslim? And they would say no. And I would say, prove it. And they'd have to eat from this cold pile of bacon because, as you know, Muslims don't eat pork. I mean, I still kind of eat pork, if we're honest, which is why the bacon test is so ridiculous. And of course, if they didn't eat the bacon, I would have them sign a Muslim registry, which looked a lot like a bridal registry. It was like really cute. And then, of course, sometimes people were like, I'm vegan, so I'm not going to eat the bacon, or I'm Jewish, and I don't really eat bacon. And I would say, you're Muslim, according to this test. So it was a test to show how ridiculous and unconstitutional the idea of a Muslim ban or Muslim registry is. And also, and to show that comedically.
And as an activist and a comedian, if you had to fight against European Jewish stereotypes, would you do it?
Absolutely. I mean, I think the thing, in the United States, we have this really interesting and rare opportunity for so many different religious, ethnic, and minority groups to come together and fight together. So if someone is attacking Jewish people, then I'm there with them. If someone's attacking Black Americans, I'm there with them. If someone's attacking Mexican Americans, I'm there with them. So our fights are all the same fight, you know, and I think it's really important now for us to like join forces and make sure that we keep a very vigilant against Trump.
Have you played with Jewish actors, and who are they?
Oh my gosh, I live in New York City. I've worked with so many Jewish comedians. Jon Stewart from The Daily Show is in my last film. David Cross from Arrested Development is in my last film. Louis Black, also from The Daily Show, is in my last film. I mean, these are really, huge American Jewish comedians, and I've worked with many, many, many.
What do you think about the situation in the Middle East? Could it be also resolved with jokes and with comedy?
I wrote a musical called The Israeli-Palestinian Conflict, a romantic comedy, and the idea was to show the character of Israel and character of Palestine. They meet at the Geneva Convention in 1948, and they have a one-night stand because the Geneva Convention was like a really slutty convention, as we all know. And so then the next morning, Israel gets land and Palestine doesn't, and that leads to on-again, off-again problems for decades, and it's played out like a relationship. And I think there's so many delicate situations in the Middle East, including the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, including, ISIS and Syria. And sometimes we're afraid to talk about these things, and I think some of the way of getting through it is just to go into it and be unapologetic. And I think comedy can really do that. No filters, comedy without any filters.
The Muslims are coming. Are they coming?
I mean, the Muslims are sort of already here, and nothing has happened. You know what I mean? They sort, in New York City, there was this mass surveillance of Muslims. A secret mass surveillance of Muslims happened for years after 9/11, and it didn't give us any terror attack plots, sleeper cells, nothing. What the New York City Police Department found out after following Muslims for so many years was that Muslims are really boring. They watch a lot of television, and they talk a lot about what they're going to eat. So that's what we learned about Muslims from that experience. Hopefully we don't, repeat it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.